Hey guys, my guest tonight is Katie Beecher, who's a medical and emotional intuitive, and she's going to share with us how she uses those skills in her practice. See you in about 5 minutes. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn on. Okay, I guess I'm going to have to put a new intro on there because that one's just the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Got to find out why it's hanging up, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, hi, my name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state of California, which means if you have or you think you might have a paranormal issue, we can get to you. It may take us a little bit because California is a big state, but we can get to you. And if for some reason we can't, we have mediums and psychics on staff who can call you and work with you that way. All right. Well, I certainly don't know. This is the second day in the row that has hung up at that mark, so I'm going to try and find something else to fix that with. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, welcome. We got a great show for you today. And here's the usual spiel is that if you're watching from Facebook and you like what you see here today, please be sure to follow if you haven't done so already and click that like button. If you're watching from YouTube, and same thing, if you're new to YouTube and you're checking us out, down that bottom right hand corner is a ghost with a magnifying glass. That is our mascot, and if you click on that, that will come up with a subscribe button. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. And again, if you like what you see, please hit that like button. We are also on Instagram under Ghosty Gal. That's lowercase. We're also, of course, on YouTube. And that address for YouTube is youtube.com/& California Haunts Radio. We're over at TikTok as well under California Haunts, and that's all lowercase. And we are over at Twitter under Cal Haunts. Anyhow, that's a lot to say. I hope everybody's having a great day. I just switched to Windows 11 in the last couple days, and I'm having issues where the computer freezes up just randomly. So I don't know. I've checked everything that I'm supposed to check, like my virtual memory, my paging memory, and all that. My graphics, it's all fine. It's just I'm having these issues. So I don't know. So I'll have to just play around with it, just like the intro. I'm going to have to dig out another intro and see if I can get that going again and find out what's going on with the intro. Okay, anyway, my guest tonight, Katie Beecher, is a medical and emotional intuitive. And I want to find out what a medical and emotional intuitive does. I think you do too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, right? So let's talk to her and see what she does and how she applies it to her clients. Let's do this. And we're off.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good. I wish that thing. This is the second day in a row it stopped like that. So I don't know what this issue is.
Always something.
So tell me about you.
So a medical and spiritual intuitive. I work pretty differently than other strange people who do this work. But basically knowing just someone's name and age, and I like to know as little as possible. I create an extensive report. It's a 4-page report, basically about every single thing in their life that impacts their health, wellness, happiness, things like childhood stuff and career and their intuitive abilities and relationships and everything you can think of. And I also create an intuitive soul painting for each person. I send these before we meet. And then during the meeting, we go over everything. I look for the root causes of things that are making people unhappy or unhealthy. It's not just unhappy or unhealthy people who contact me. It's people who, want to know more about their life or their job or life purpose or other things. And we really can cover a great deal of information during the meetings. That I really look for, what are the reasons why you're not happy or you're not able to express yourself or you can't connect your intuition or, where's the trauma stored in your body or where do you need to be more creative, whatever is going on with the person. And then we develop a plan moving forward.
This really fascinates me. And how do you make these this thing that you create? I mean, is it because you're able to look in on people and then see how they're ticking and then come back to them and go, here's what I see, or how's that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always tell people if I could actually explain how I did this, I'd be a very wealthy person. But I've always been able to tune into people's energy. I've always picked up spirits. I've always kind of, from a really, really young age. Some of the things that I picked up were unpleasant and scary, and I can explain that later.
Sure.
But I've always been able to tune in and kind of and know what was going on, and didn't have anyone I could talk to about it. I just kind of felt really weird and sensitive and all that. I'm sure a lot of people in your audience can relate to that. So I really pushed it down. I didn't know what to do with it, and it was scary. And I ended up having an eating disorder, which I write about in my book. And it was from being bullied and also family dysfunction. And that was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I really believe it was divine intervention that at 16 led me to call our pediatrician. I didn't tell anybody else because nobody else was very supportive. I called our pediatrician, let him know what I was doing. And he hooked me up with a Jungian psychologist. Carl Jung is a pretty cool dude. And so she actually is the one who taught me how to connect to my intuition and use my weird gifts and understand them, and not be afraid of them. And, it was kind of from that all of this evolved. I became a licensed counselor and worked very intuitively. So I just kind of let my guides and God kind of tell me, what the people needed and what to say, until one day when I was working with someone who also had an eating disorder, and she was trying to get pregnant. And I was trying to explain how to do this written technique that I teach people about connecting to intuition. And a lot of people don't really know what that means. They're not even sure what it means to connect to their own intuition. And this person didn't. So I asked if there was anyone that she felt comfortable with. And she said her grandmother, who was in spirit. So I said, okay, let's do a little role play. I'll be your grandmother and you talk to me like you would talk to your intuition, and we'll kind of, I'll show you how it's done. And I ended up inadvertently channeling her grandmother. Wow. And yeah, her grandmother was in the room with us. I was able to see in my mind an image of where she played as a child, which was her grandmother's attic. I saw the exact toys she played with. I was saying things that her grandmother would say to her, knew things that only her grandmother would know. And it even freaked me out a little bit because I wasn't, exactly used to using it in my work. But about a month later, she comes in and tells me she's pregnant, and she'd been trying for 3 years. So her grandmother helped. But I realized, at that point, I really need to use these abilities because they weren't going away. And the more I practiced, the more I realized that I could see and hear and create these paintings. And it's a lot of it is kind of a knowing, and I'm able to see into people's bodies and kind of get, a big picture of what's going on with them. And it's really, very much based in love for people who get afraid of this stuff. But it's very much about healing and helping people, connect with themselves.
When you tell your story about realizing that you have abilities that you don't know what to do with, that happened to me. I knew I was having this stuff happen to me, as a kid. But then when you get older, you get to the point where you're either, you don't know what to do with them, so you push, like you say, you push them back, or you just ignore it, and you go on with life. And I remember when I started to hang out with the paranormal teams, they started to come, the abilities started to come, and I didn't know what to do with them, and nobody would tell me anything. I can say this. It's kind of funny and amusing at the same time. Thank God for Sylvia Brown when she was doing those TV shows.
Sure.
Because I was off in the afternoons and I would watch her and I'm like, okay, this isn't so scary. I can do this.
Yeah, it's so true to see other people who do things and they're like, wow, I'm not the only one, and maybe I am still a little weird, but it normalizes it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really helpful. When I was young, I read a lot of books on near-death experiences to try and figure out what am I thinking and seeing and feeling, and that really helped me a lot.
I can imagine. Also, like you talk about your therapist, it's within the last it's been in, the last 10 years that the therapists have really got on board with this stuff. Because I remember past 10 years ago, if you walked in, talking about this stuff, you know. So yeah, I've noticed it because I had a couple friends that had gotten therapy, and they had therapists, similar to yours that helped them with grasp the ability, be able to use it better, and so it wasn't so scary.
For sure. Yeah. And it depends on the therapist you go to, but I think more and more people are taking a spiritual approach. And
Hmm.
certainly if you go to a Jungian, therapist, and I think people like art therapists maybe have always been open to receiving signals in symbolic form,
Yeah.
things like that. And even like the traditional medical establishment is finally getting on board with trauma being stored in the body, and being expressed in those ways. So we are making progress.
Well, it is, and I've noticed it too. My mother, I took care of my mother for 11 years, and she had dementia, but she would see things, and she was sensitive because she would go ghost hunting with me and see stuff. And I remember when I would go into the ER with her, and they'd say, "Well, is she hallucinating?" And I told them honestly, I said, "Well, I'm maybe not the right person to ask because I'm a ghost hunter, and I see this stuff all the time with clients. So maybe And they would roll their eyes, but I mean, everything has changed so much now. Like you say, they're more open to it.
It's true, and I want to kind of, if you don't mind,
Yes,
talk about the scary experiences that I've had, and
absolutely, go for it.
picking up some of the negative energies, and that happened when I was probably around 10 or something. The Exorcist had just come out, which tells you how old I am, but
Oh my
uh,
God, yeah.
right. And I was just absolutely freaking terrified of anything having to do with it when the music came on the radio. Yes, I'm old. The National Enquirer, the pictures about demonic possessions, and I was just absolutely freaking terrified. And because I really felt like I was picking up this negative energy.
Mhm.
And, we lived in an old house and all this other stuff. And, I realized later it was two things. It was the dysfunctional energy in my family
Mhm.
that I was picking up. So it was evil people. But I also learned, and I hope some of your listeners can relate to this because it sounds a little strange, but I've encountered it with other people, that people who are kind of light bearers, who are good, loving people who are meant to share,
Mhm.
healing and love and all this positive stuff. Um, I believe in good and evil. And but I believe that love is always more powerful at any time, and that we are always protected and always safe. And unless you are actively seeking out negative energy, or you're in an altered state because of severe mental illness or addiction,
Mhm.
I really believe that we're all connected to that love, and we can choose what energy enters our system or not. So what I learned, and my therapist actually, confirmed this. So I was kind of like, okay, cool, I'm not crazy. That negative energy tries to scare people who are trying to do loving things in the world. And I'm not singling myself out because there's a ton of ways to do loving things in
Right,
the
right,
world,
right, right.
you know. But I really do believe that it tries to scare us and make us think that it's all that, and it's scary, and it's going to hurt us, and all that. And when I realized that, what, I'm not afraid of it, and there can be evil around and evil people, but you're not going to hurt me, and you can't
Mhm.
do anything to me, and I'm not letting you in, and that just changed the whole game for me.
It's putting up that bubble, that protection bubble around you to keep that stuff from coming in. It just bounces off.
Exactly. That's up to
Absolutely.
us. We have control of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, if you're running around in a bad mood all the time, or disgusted with the world or whatever, that just opens up to invite stuff in.
It's absolutely true. And I know, like, I work with a lot of people who are really sick and who have mental health issues and stuff, and it can be really hard to be positive, and
Mhm.
to feel good about things. And but I always try and help people to see that they're not a diagnosis, and
Mhm.
they're not a label, and that there's other aspects to their life and that we can work on healing all the stuff. But um, you know, it is important to also have a whole life and realize that you can have joy even though there's things that are not very happy in your life.
How hard is it to convince somebody who does have that negative attitude to not look at things so negatively? I know it's hard when you're sick. I get like that too. I mean, I got my own health issues, and there's days when I'm not getting off the couch. I'm just like, nope, leave me alone. So how hard is it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I've learned, I've been doing this for 30 years, and you really have to meet people where they're at,
Mhm.
um, and show them that there are people who care about them. I genuinely care about the people I work with, and I can't fix them, but I can show them that, by connecting to my what I call intuition, which is a
Mhm.
very loving force that we all have access to, that accepts you, that knows all about you. I kind of compare it to like a pet who literally does not care if you've showered or what you're wearing or what's going on. They just love you and accept you unconditionally. So if you can find that piece of you, that part of your life, that energy, even if it's just for a few minutes a day, and connect to that, then I think that can just change your energy and help you to maybe do something a little bit nice for yourself,
Sure.
and it is little things like that. It's not going to change overnight, but
Mhm.
um, I just find when I'm in a bad place, if I can actively even just do something I enjoy for 5 minutes,
Mhm.
it can take you out of that place of just feeling horrible. And sometimes you need to wallow in it, and that's fine. And listen to your symptoms and talk to them. Be
Mhm.
like, why are you here? What do you want me to know? Like with the eating disorder, like I ended up befriending it and saying, why are you here? What do you need me to know? How can I change? How can I heal? And it was the most difficult thing I ever did, but it was so transformational. And it's why, like, I figured out who I was and I figured out these gifts, and now I can help other people and stuff. So, a lot of it is there to help us in some ways too.
Absolutely. Just like I tell my friend, some of my friends when they get depressed too, I said, you know what? Do you have dreams? Do you have dreams about something that you want to do, someplace where you want to go? Hold on to those dreams. It may not come true, but as long as you have that to look at and grasp in, that keeps you going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, it's very stressful, and even like COVID made everybody even more anxious than they already were. And, so many things happened. And I think I also tell people having just one person for support, just one that you feel loved and cared about by and that you can talk to, and maybe that person is your pet, you know, who knows, but you just find that love and support.
What's scary is when your pet rolls its eyes at you when you're talking to it.
I love it.
Sorry, I had to say that. I swear my dog will look at it. I swear I'll be gabbing away at her, and all of a sudden her eyes will roll back and she'll turn away, and I'm like, okay, I'll shut up now.
One of my favorite things to do is pet readings because they not only tell me so much about themselves, they tell me so much about their owner because they're so tied into you, and they're there for you. So they tell me things that maybe humans don't necessarily know how to talk about or feel comfortable. And I'll be like, okay, so your dog just told me this. And they're like, oh my God, now I have to talk about it. So it happens.
I'm afraid of what my dog would say about me.
Probably very nice things.
Let's talk about that a few minutes. Since we're on that topic, how how do animals think as opposed to how we think?
What they tell me, and so animal readings are super cool. Um, they I do separate animal readings, but they often come up like when I'm doing the paintings of people and their energy. I will often get an image of a pet that they used to have or a pet that's with them now. So it's a very cool way that they come through.
Mhm.
And they horses are super fascinating. I know nothing about them. I've never had a horse, but they're incredibly human and incredibly empathic and sensitive. So all animals tend to take on the personality traits of their owner. They also take on the physical characteristics. So and they're really here to serve us, to help us, to be guides for us. So one of a very motivating way to help people take care of themselves, if you will, is to say, like, I'm really picking up a lot of anxiety or
Mhm.
depression or pain from your animal. And I'll describe it so they'll know I'm like, telling the truth. And I'll be like, they're saying they're picking it up from you. And they're so concerned with their pet that they end up doing things for self-care or spending more time with their pet or doing things that make them feel better because they don't want their pet to hurt. So it's I'll use whatever I can get. So
It makes sense. It all makes sense. I
right.
really admire what you do. I do. I think what you do is great.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really great work. I get to meet people from all over the world, and sometimes people are in a lot of pain, and it's it's a gift that they trust me enough
Mhm,
to open up, and most of the 99% of the time I'm able to help in some way.
mhm.
Probably higher percentage than that, but so thank you.
When you work with people, and let's talk about the resistors, because we talked about that a little bit earlier, but I know there's people that will resist that, what you have to offer. How are you able to get them to bend, to work with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that sending the report and the painting before we meet helps a
Mhm,
lot because I don't get any information. I don't see a picture. And so it's kind of like me, my guides, whatever, like proving that I have this knowledge about them. And so it helps them be like, oh, well, she knew all this stuff. So maybe I should listen to the other stuff she's she's saying too. Um, so that helps. And it's not uncommon for people to come to me with a physical or emotional symptom. And sometimes they just want to know, like, what herb can I take? Or what can I, what doctor I need to see, or whatever, like, what am I supposed to do with this? And the report will talk about things like really painful relationships, or jobs that they hate, that they've been unhappy with forever, or the fact that they have abandoned their creativity. Um, and so it's a great way to tie in. Yes, we will work on this physical and emotional stuff, but hey, also, this is going on. And we're able to link, when did these symptoms start? Oh, when my father died, or when I got separated, or, I was going through a really stressful period, or so it helps to be able to like get them to see how all this stuff is connected,
mhm.
and that, you know, um, kind of looking at all the areas of like everything matters, and even things like stuff that happened to them, when they were a kid can matter. Um,
Mhm.
so a lot of it's just kind of, it's like evidential mediumship,
Sure.
if you
That's
will, that you're, giving evidence that you're really getting this stuff. And so they're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll listen to you.
what else too, I think too, people are more apt to listen, as you say, because they have the written stuff in front of them. They have that painting in front of them, and they can look at it and go, "Oh, okay. Hey, my God, that's where I hurt right there."
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's such complete information that a lot of people are just like, okay, first of all, you freaked me out. And I feel like I've known you forever. And when you go to a therapist for the first few times, you kind of have to retell the story that you've told to every other therapist 8 million times.
Mhm.
With this, your story's out there. Your story is on that paper, and I'm talking about it. So we can get a lot done, but there's also like, wow, I don't have to bring that up again,
Mhm.
or because sometimes, like with things like sexual abuse or assault, for example, um, I'm very careful about what I write in my reports
Mhm.
because I want to be sensitive, and I don't know who's reading them, and I don't. It's a tough, difficult thing to talk about. Um, so sometimes it'll come up as trauma, but sometimes it'll come up as red areas on a painting, you know. And so it's a little bit easier to talk about them when it's not necessarily the words.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. When we talk about the paintings now, I'm a pain management patient. So when I go in every month, they give me a little chart thing with a body on it, and point to where you're having issues. Is that what this is like, or is it more like more graphic?
It's much more graphic. Actually, I have, for people who can see this, some examples.
Oh, there you go, like an MRI. Awesome.
So there we go. Okay, so that's just with my dumb microphone. Right. Okay, that's just one example.
Sure.
Here's another. They're all different. I'm covering up the names as I show them to you. They're all like super different.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah.
This person is a flower.
That's cool.
So basically, it's a depiction. It could be an animal. It could be like an insect, whatever.
Right.
But it's basically a depiction of their body and their energy. So this is probably an easier example to show you. But so everything has meaning. The colors all have meaning. Where they're placed has meaning. Where I start. The fact that blue is being empathic and sensitive, and this person's arms are like straight out, and so they're literally pushing away the people's energy that they feel is impacting their life, and they're reaching for magenta. And magenta is all about being your authentic self, being creative, not caring what people think. So those are just a couple, quick examples.
Right.
And then like there's some red down near the first chakra at the base of the spine, and that's just signifying some of the trauma and things that they've been through. And so it's it gets pretty detailed.
That's pretty cool. I like that. That's really cool. That is really, really cool. And what are some of the responses when people see this stuff? It must be pretty positive, or they're shocked, or what?
Yes, and I'll tell you a really fun story about one of them. People love these paintings. And when I first started, I'm like, okay, great. They look like a 5-year-old did them. What in God's name are people going to think of it? It's crazy. And now people frame them. They use them as their screensavers. They really have a lot of meaning for people. And so that makes me really happy. One of the coolest ones I ever did was I was working with a 5-year-old boy, talking to, his mom, who was autistic, and he was nonverbal. And I didn't know anything about him. I just knew his name and age. When I did his painting, it was a very unusual painting because I made a fire truck, and there was a fireman on top, and he was shooting water into this super tall building. And so I'm like, okay, this is a little weird, but I'm just going to go for it, whatever. And I was trying to paint the hose on the side of the fire truck, and I just kept making an S. And I'm like, okay, I can draw. This is weird. And to myself, I said, what is this, like Superman's fire truck? This is bizarre. So I know enough to just go with it, not second guess it. I sent it to his mom. And when we got to that part of the reading, she started crying. And she said, I have to tell you, before I got pregnant, I lost everything in an apartment fire. We lived in one of the top floors. There was a fire, the building burned down. I lost everything. And I was in absolute despair, total depression. I just, I thought my life was over, and I had just lost all hope. And then I found out I was pregnant with my son. And she said, he literally saved my life. And it's because of him that I had the will to live and to go on. And I wanted everyone to know how special he is and what he did for me. And he really is my Superman, and I call him that. And in fact, he has Superman's middle name. So I got goosebumps, which does happen, but I was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. And that was so meaningful to her, because it was really a message from her, nonverbal son too.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. That's really cool. And when you talk about your patients, without naming anything, what is one of the more maybe difficult cases that you've done?
A lot of the people that I work with have gone from doctor to doctor to, natural practitioner to whatever, and for years, and I'm often able to get to the root causes and be able to refer them, to the proper medical professionals. I don't diagnose. That's illegal and unethical.
Absolutely.
So I work with other people, but sometimes there are people who are in such despair, and they say that they would try anything and that they're open to anything, but sometimes they just feel like they've been through it all, and sometimes the things that I have to say are things that they've heard from other people as well. And either they're not willing to make those changes, or they're too afraid to make changes, or what they really need to do is learn to love and accept themselves. And that's just, it's not in their purview. It's just not something that they know how to do. They don't think they can do it, and they haven't learned how to do it. And it's people, like, most of the time we can accomplish a ton in one session. So I do meet with people multiple times, but not everybody, because we don't need to. But there's people who, like, I just know you're going to need more time, to work this through. And so it's the hardest cases and the saddest, because I, really do want to help, and I can see that they can make changes, but they're just not in that place.
Sure. Let's talk about your book a little bit.
Great.
So there we go.
It's, yay, there it is, my book. Yay. Called Heal from Within.
I'm bringing back.
Sorry, okay, we're back. Anyway, okay, those are Heal from Within. Okay. And I knew when I was 16, when I was recovering, my guides told me I would write a book. Hopefully, more than one book. But it was basically about, like, learning what I had learned. Or have learned. Took me forever to write the damn thing. But it's a little bit of my story of healing from, eating disorder, Lyme, all that good stuff. There's a part of it that teaches people how to connect to their intuition and their body, which is really important. And then it's basically like taking people through a reading with me. So there's a lot of different tools and techniques and quizzes and things for identifying what your issues are, what your strengths are, what they're linked to. I go through all the chakras and show them, like, how all of their different symptoms are related to certain areas of the body, certain energy centers, how those are related to each other, and things that you can do physically, emotionally, and spiritually to work on healing. And then at the end section is, specific diseases and things like that I give more information about. My husband calls it KD Beecher, the home game.
That's awesome. What, for people that, out there that maybe can't go to your sessions or things like that, what is an easy way to calm yourself down and all that? Is it through meditation, or how would that happen?
I'd love to teach my favorite way of connecting to intuition.
Okay.
And this is something that I cannot take credit for. It is Jungian psychology. Learned it when I was 16. This saved my life. It's why I'm still here. It's why I'm healed. And it's something that I do every day. So, I talk the talk, or walk the walk, or whatever that expression. So the way that I think about intuition is that it's this all-knowing, loving force that's with all of us. Kind of like this perfect best friend that's with you all the time. And my favorite technique is to physically write out a question or your thoughts or feelings and direct it to your intuition. And for people who may not know what that means to them, when I started out, I talked to God. There are people who talk to loved ones in spirit. There are people who talk to a higher power. So it's whatever it means to you. There's no right or wrong way. And so you write out your thing, and whatever you hear, see, feel in response to what you wrote, write that down, and then write back to it. And then whatever you get, write that down, write back to it. So you're having a written conversation with your intuition.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
it's so powerful because, first of all, you have to stop what you're doing to write. So you're much less likely to be distracted, and you're in the present moment. And a lot of anxiety and stuff is related to past or future stuff. So, you're present, and your body's involved, because you're writing. So there's that kinesthetic activity. So, and we get a lot of intuitive signals from our bodies. So, and a lot of us are dissociated from our bodies, especially if there's pain or trauma. That's not where you want to be. So the natural response is to dissociate. And so sometimes I will just say, do you have anything to tell me? Keep it kind of open. Sometimes I'll ask a question. Sometimes I'll just kind of start writing, and do word vomit and then be like, hey, can you give me some feedback? And for people who have physical issues, like pain or something like that, I really encourage them to write to their bodies and write to their symptoms as friends instead of their enemies or something that they have to fight or something that's out to get them. And like when it was with the eating disorder or Lyme or whatever, I was basically like, okay, why are you here? What do you want me to know? How can I be more authentic? What do I need to do to change things? How can I help you heal? Just being open. And sometimes I would yell at them, and that's okay too. But there's such a mentality in our society to like fight things, and that things are bad and they're there to hurt you. And a lot of the time, anxiety can be a really important warning signal, or it can be a sign that you're not being treated well, and you need to make a change, or that you're unhappy, or that, discomfort's not always a totally bad thing.
Absolutely. I'm kind of thinking about the one thing where you will write stuff down on a piece of paper and then throw it into the fire.
And I think that's an especially great technique for people who are empaths who tend to pick up other people's stuff. And it's not even necessarily negativity, but sometimes you just feel very overwhelmed. Or if you're feeling anxious or whatever, a great thing to ask is, what is this about? First of all, you have to identify it. So allow yourself to feel it. And then you can be like, okay, what is this about? Like, do I have a reason to feel anxious? Because maybe you do, maybe that's totally normal. And if not, then you can be like, well, am I picking this up from somebody I was just at the store with, or somebody who lives with me, or somebody around the world? And that can be, a great technique for just kind of getting rid of stuff that doesn't belong to you anymore, or old outdated thoughts, or, stuff like that. So that's a great technique for that.
What about meditation?
I think, well, I have trouble quieting this brain, as you can imagine. So I feel like the writing to your intuition and your body is a great form of mindfulness meditation, because you're very present, you're just focused on your activity and you're listening. So that can be, for me, a great way to kind of segue into, okay, I need some quiet and I just need to kind of let things come to me. So I think there's tons of ways of meditation, but I think it's extremely valuable.
Sure, absolutely. No, I like your way better because I know I'm a person, I like to write, to express
Yeah.
myself. And I remember even fighting with my family growing up. I would write letters to my father or my mother,
Mm,
to give to them, just so I could get it out. Because I think sometimes in family dynamics, you're either going to be fighting verbally with people or you're going to hold it all in.
for sure. For sure. Yeah. And that's a great way, even if you're the person you're writing to isn't with us anymore, because they are still with us, or even if it's just stuff that you need to say, and as like with a difficult family system, sometimes there are things that you need to say, but that saying them will bring you pain, or it's like talking to a wall, or, you're going to end up feeling worse, but you still need to release that energy. So, doing it in writing, no matter whether the person sees it or not, I think is a wonderful release.
How badly does stress affect our bodies?
Oh my goodness. So badly. Um, it can be subtle too, like, because I think that all of society is like, okay, don't feel pain, take a pill, or Jesus, it's taking longer than a millisecond for my screen to refresh, or, we have trouble with waiting and patience and tolerance of being uncomfortable. So I think that stress is in so many forms, and it's one of those things that we often feel in our bodies before we're even conscious of it, you
Mhm.
know? Um, so it not only affects, like, cortisol is something that a lot of people have accepted for a long time. Um, and that has all kinds of effects on the immune system and everything. And I think that's where traditional medicine started to accept it. And then they started to get more on board with what, traditional Chinese medicine or Carl Jung or Freud or all these other people have been like, no, these symptoms, they're real and they can be very highly contributed to by our experiences, you
Mhm.
know? So I really feel like for me, one of the most important things I do is physical movement. And I happen to my weird sport is pole dancing. Um, but
Okay.
it's amazing. I'm obsessed with it, and it's one of the best things I've ever done for like my body and body image, and meeting friends. And it's a really hard sport. Like people think it's stupid, but well,
Right.
it's
No,
like
no,
any other sport.
I'm not laughing because of that. That was something I wouldn't expect.
Right? No, it is funny. I mean, it's we laugh, and it's a great thing. It's good to laugh at yourself. But for me, it's the first time that I haven't associated movement with exercise for weight,
Mhm.
or calorie burning, or it's like, I just really love to go. And so it's where I have friends, it's where I express myself, it's where like I get to be physical and I get to release a lot of stress that I don't even realize is there.
Mhm.
Um, so I think physical, movement is such an amazing way to release stress of all kinds, often that you're not even aware that you're dealing with.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. My big thing is I'll go to yard work.
Great.
I love it. I get
Yep.
out there, and it's not even planting things; it's tearing things up. That's what does it for me. Going out
Right.
mowing the lawn, the weed eater. Oh, you feel macho using that weed eater, boy, knocking everything down.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, no, I'm an avid gardener myself. I'm happy weeding. So.
Let me ask you about the colors. You talked about the colors earlier that you paint with. Now, are these the colors of the chakra that you're using, or is like I learned to calm myself down and put myself in a good meditation by using the rainbow. You start out at the red, and then you work your way down to that blue and white section to where everything's really calm. So, what colors are you using and how do they work?
Yes, so it has nothing to do with the chakras at all.
Okay,
Um, on my paintings. It's
okay.
I will start off, I'll write down someone's name. I will start off, normally I will see a color that I'm
Mhm,
going to start with. Sometimes I will see an image, like I'll see a flower, or I'll see like the triangle one that I showed you. I actually saw the triangle first. I'm like, okay, whatever. So they'll show me an image or a color to start with, and
mhm,
I'll put it down. And then I just basically keep listening, and keep seeing and keep hearing, okay, the arms need to be out here and they need to be yellow. Or I'm just kind of being open at all times to, what I'm being told. And um, I use the colors more as kind of the general symbolism of colors. So, for instance, red can mean a lot of things. It can mean anxiety, it can mean anger, it can mean pressure, um, it can mean passion, and intense love. It can mean pain.
mhm.
And so, when I do the paintings, I purposely don't interpret them until I've met, we do the report first and then we do the painting. So I purposely don't interpret it as I'm going because I don't want to alter the results. Um, but I listen to my guides as I interpret them, and I'm like, okay, for you, red means this, and this is why it's in this position or in this part of the body. So it's very individualized.
Okay, very interesting. I'm just fascinated by what you do. Now, when you look at somebody, I'm just going to say this. I mean, are you able to look into their body itself and see what parts ailing them, or is it just a feeling you get?
It's a little bit of everything. So I definitely can see inside the body.
Mhm,
Um, I will often see shapes. Like I'll see bumps sometimes depending on where I'm at. So sometimes that can mean, endometriosis, or it can mean some fibroids, or I'll see that a pelvis or a uterus is tilted, or I will see organs that are very crowded. So it's a lot of it, it's symbolic stuff, that I will see. And I am extremely careful not to make diagnoses because, again, we talked about
You're
that.
not a doctor, right?
But I will say, this feels like it could be this, or symptoms similar to Lyme, or something like that. And then, so the person's able to then verify those symptoms. And then I can be like, okay, so these are some people that I can recommend or I've worked with or whatever. So you can go actually get diagnosed, maybe do some physical treatment with them or whatever. But I'm very, I'm very careful to write down exactly what I see instead of, like, sometimes I know exactly what it is. But I'm still just like, I don't want to put it down like it is a diagnosis, because then people get scared too. And I don't want to do that to them,
Right. Absolutely. Um, what do you like best about what you do?
Wow. I think I get to meet amazing people like you. And that's really, one of the best parts is all of the amazing people that I've met, either other authors or through podcasts or clients, or, I would not have gotten to do that had I not done this work. I love watching people learn to connect to their intuition and trust themselves, because I never want anyone substituting my intuition for theirs. And, while my guides are like incredibly accurate, it's like, I still say to them, does this resonate with you? Does this make sense to you? And how can we use this in your life? And, how can I help you to trust yourself more? And maybe look for those red flags in a relationship before you get into one that's going to hurt you again, or, things like that. So, watching people be able to learn and grow and accept themselves and transform their lives. And like, I'm working with some people who have pretty severe health anxiety, and that can be so disabling, because you can't, like, move forward, and you can't enjoy your life, and it's just this constant, well, that, something bad's going to happen to you. So helping them see that, like, maybe what's going on has other reasons. And, maybe, let's think of one thing you can do today to challenge that, or to do differently, or, concrete steps that you can take to maybe set some boundaries with people who are, making your life miserable or whatever. So it's just getting to watch people heal and transform is, like, really a huge gift.
When you said that, I got to thinking about people with health problems. There's some people that have health problems that don't even want to go to the doctor because they're afraid to go to the doctor.
I know. And some people, they're like, I'm afraid to meet with you. I'm afraid it's going to be scary. And I'm like, please, please, please don't be. I'm always honest with you, but I make everything positive, and I'm super supportive, and, we go at your pace, and I'm not gonna, gonna force you. And, but yeah, it's real. And I think, then the longer you wait, the worse it gets. And, and also, so many of my clients have been to so many doctors or other practitioners and just get gaslit, like, this isn't really what's wrong with you. Or, like, I have hypermobility and Ehlers-Danlos. It's a very common thing, but it took freaking decades to get diagnosed. And it's all these other, like, there's zillions of symptoms, right? And it was only my daughter getting it that made me finally get evaluated, even though I know I had it. But, like, that's something that's so misdiagnosed, and it's labeled so many things. And there's people who, it's like, they just get sick of you asking for tests or questioning or being like, I still don't feel good. Like, please help me. So they just give up and feel like no one's going to help them.
Absolutely. Is it hard for people to get in touch with their intuition?
It can be hard. Because a lot of the time we tend to overthink things. And that's a wonderful question. So one of the biggest obstacles to connecting is overthinking the process. So being like, okay, is this my intuition? Is it just in my head? Is it just what I want to hear? Why aren't I seeing colors and angels when I do this? What if I do it wrong? What if it asks me to do something really hard and I'm not ready? And, what if when I'm talking to my intuition, what if I hear something unrelated to what I wrote or asked? Does that mean I'm not getting the information or I'm not hearing it enough? So what I encourage people to do is go slowly at first. Whatever they hear, just welcome it. And then ask yourself, like, does this resonate? Right? And don't worry about whether it comes from your intuition or your own head or whatever, because we're smart too. And maybe spirit or your intuition is reminding you of something that happened to you that is related to the experience that you're concerned with. Or I've had people say, well, I think about somebody else. And I'm like, all right, well, what does that person have to do with what you're, thinking about? And they're like, oh, wait, yeah. So I don't think the source is as important as the information and, how you use it. And sometimes we're really afraid of what we hear. And so you don't want to listen and you cut yourself off. And so to that, I say, well, have a conversation with it. Why am I afraid of you? What is this bringing up in me? What am I pushing down? And maybe ask for like one step. How could I get started on listening or making this change or whatever? And then also, you may be at a point in your day where you're like, you know what? I just can't deal with this. I'm like, I hear you, you're right, but I just cannot go there. I promise to check in, another time and listen. So I'm not ignoring intuition, because if you ignore intuition, it yells at you in very unpleasant ways and you get more symptoms, or bad things have to happen for you to pay attention. So you don't want to ignore it, but know that you have a choice about how you want to respond to it.
Is that little voice you hear in your head?
Sure is. Absolutely. It's the voice. It's the pain in your stomach. It's the stubbing your toe. It's the song you hear on a radio. It's seeing a butterfly. It's, all of these things are potentially signs that, oh, I need to pay attention to that. So it comes in all different ways.
Absolutely. And when you started your practice, because you talked earlier about finally figuring out, what your gifts were. How hard was it to start your practice to get this going?
It was very helpful to be a licensed counselor because, I had been doing that for a really long time. And so it kind of morphed from that. And what actually ended up happening is my mom got really sick and she became paralyzed. And that turned my life upside down in about a zillion ways. And well, as horrible as it was, it kind of made me think about what I was doing with my life. And like, I liked counseling, but I was like, and I was also an artist at the time too. And I'm like, I feel like I need to do more. Like I have more to offer. I started going to a spiritualist church and those are amazing. And so I started to learn from some of the mediums there and hone my skills and just become more accepting of it. And so I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. I tried a lot of things, like I'm a Reiki master and all that kind of stuff, but it wasn't really calling to me. And then I just ended up taking a workshop. It was just this 3-day thing, like intro to medical intuition. And they didn't even teach you how to do it. It was more like, these are the chakras. This is what it means. This is kind of stuff you can do. And she basically said, I'm going to give you a name and an age. Tell me everything you know. And I thought, like, yeah, there's no way in hell. Like, I'm not going to know anything. And I kind of shocked myself because I knew an awful lot. And I realized, like, she said, well, I don't know what you actually do for a living, but you might want to, take this more seriously. And so it kind of happened by accident, but not by accident. And I was like, oh, it's really cool. This really resonates with me. And I just started practicing, on friends or on friends' relatives who had passed, so I wouldn't know them. Yeah, and the more I practice, I just kind of talked to more people and networked, and I've been fortunate to get some pretty great press and things like that. So it kind of slowly morphed into what it is now.
Awesome, awesome. What's next for you?
Well, I would like to write another book, and addiction with the eating disorder background is something that is really important to me. And I would one idea I have is to connect with people in spirit who've gone through addiction stuff, um, and talk to their families as well, and find out what kind of signals and signs are you getting from people maybe who've had near death experiences related to addiction,
Mhm.
and find out what they've learned. And it's such a prevalent thing. I mean, it always has been, but I think it's especially bad now. And I'd really like to give people a path and hope towards knowing that they can heal their addictions and come back to themselves. So that's just one idea I have. But I'd like to do more speaking stuff and keep doing what I'm doing, and who knows.
And along that line, what message do you have for people today?
You were born loving yourself, and you absolutely deserve that love and acceptance. And just because someone or more than one person along the way has made you feel otherwise doesn't mean it's true. So just start tomorrow, start today. Do one little thing to nurture and love yourself, and it can grow from there. But you deserve it, and you're worthy.
Right. So usually the last question I ask everybody is: you're on the strip in Las Vegas, and you're standing out there. Like those guys that hand out the cards, right?
Right.
You're standing out there with other people that do similar work to yours. How do you get people to come into your office?
Well, definitely by wearing lots of magenta. I love bright colors, and orange, and I think being really cheerful and a welcoming, loving smile.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. I so appreciate it. It was fantastic.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
We'd love to have you on again. That was you're really good at
Love
what
to.
you do. Obviously, obviously.
I would love to anytime. It was super nice talking to you and meeting you, and yeah, hopefully people can take something from this.
Absolutely. All right, we'll see ya, and have a good one.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, bye bye. All right, I learned a lot. That was real fun. She was really great. See, they're thanking you in the chat room right now. They're thanking you in the chat room. Anyway, I want to thank you again for coming, and I hope to get you that you'll come back and visit us sometime to talk with us. And in the meantime, I hope you guys were listening, and I hope that if you like what you heard, share it with 5 people. If you hated what you heard, share it with 5 of your enemies. We're equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio. And again, if you're watching from Facebook and you haven't done so already, hit that like button and hit that follow button. Just like over at YouTube, there's that little ghost in the bottom right hand corner, the magnifying glass, and the Sherlock Holmes hat on. If you haven't done so already, click on him and hit that subscribe button. And again, show us some love. Show us that you like this. Okay? And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you her contact information and her book, and where you can get that stuff. And then I'm going to sign off because tomorrow we don't have a guest tomorrow. I'm going to be reading the book. I'm going to be reading from the Salem Witch Trial book, just to let you guys know, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. But we're getting down to where we're more than halfway through that book, so it's kind of cool. So we're going to continue with that. And then Friday, of course, Nancy Matz will be with us. So here we go. Let me get her information out. So you've got a website of katiebeecher.com. And of course, the book is Heal from Within. And you can get that from her website. You can also get it through Amazon and all the usual suspects. All right? Okay, guys, thank you very much for coming. I will see you tomorrow. I'll be live 6:30 p.m. Pacific reading the book. See ya.